Hey, what's up, everybody? I don't know if that was a shit show. Trying to figure out how to get that intro in here, and it seems that I don't know. I didn't do a good job of it. I'm trying to unplug cords. I didn't realize that the computer was going to make noises. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. Oh, there we go. More buzzing. All right. Now we're back to this. Welcome to episode 11 of 15 Beers. We're going to be talking to some riff lords today. This is the first week of the every other week podcast. I think that's a lot more manageable. Hopefully I'll be able to figure out audio issues, or I don't know. We'll see. Or it'll be just the same shit. The last week's episode was the first one that I put up on podcast sites, so if you want to go listen to that, hopefully the sound quality will get better as I go along. Today we're going to be talking with Pat Harrington from Geezer, John Bryan from Wall of Ego and Dead Empires, and Jesse Cunningham from Elk and the Blind Ambassadors. Knuckle Diver and Fuse too. Maybe we'll be a little drunk by the time we talk to him. We'll talk about some 90s Ulster County rock and roll riffs. I have a co-host for the day today. I have Una, but she's more interested in what's going on in the kitchen right now. She should be right up here as we go along. What else? I feel like I had more to say. I don't know. So there won't be an episode next week. The next episode will be in July, whatever the first Tuesday is in July. We'll do that. If anyone has any ideas as to what a topic, we've done riff lords. We did drummers last week. I guess we can go like keyboard players, go bass players, or we go off the grid. We go performance artists. Who knows? All right. Well, Pat Harrington's gonna be our first guest, and we'll give him a call. Let's get on it.
Hello.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's happening, man?
How you living?
Living hot.
Yes,
Sweating my ass off.
it's been fucking brutal. I feel like last year was the first year I did the dog walking, and I got a very cush year. Like it didn't get really hot until almost July, and then it stayed hot. This year it started in like mid-May, and it just hasn't fucking stopped.
Yeah, just to add the insult to injury.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a crazy time. How have you been for this whole like lockdown situation? Like, what level of leaving the house are you at?
We're not at, normal yet, I guess.
Yeah.
We were fairly strict throughout, especially the first 2 months. We live with my mother, who definitely is a high, what's the word?
High risk kind of
High risk
situation,
thank
yeah.
you. And so we kept it tight for a long time.
Yeah.
And now, we go out, we go shopping, we wear masks.
Yeah.
We've started to socialize a little bit, especially with people that have been doing the same. And I feel we're at a spot where we're confident that we can hang out. Actually, this past weekend, for the first time, we took the kids out west. My wife's family has my wife has a lot of family in Western New York, so we went out there so the kids could get down with their cousins and shit. That was important.
Yeah.
The kids just have not had any interaction for 3 months now. So
yeah. There's gonna be a time for like children that age are good. I mean, not everyone's gonna remember this forever, but I think it's gonna have a lot deeper impact on kids, younger children.
Absolutely, and that's been a big thing that Liz and I have been focusing on, is doing our best to not lose our shit. Oh, sorry.
I think no, you can definitely fucking curse. That's fine.
To not lose our shit, so the kids can feel. I mean, like you said, they're going to remember it, but we're going to try and hopefully not make it terrifying for them.
Where in Western New York?
We kind of bounced around. We started around near Rochester, and then her uncle has a cottage on Lake Ontario, kind of in the middle of nowhere between like Rochester and Buffalo. And so we spent the night there. We had our tent. We went they have a little cottage, but they have a nice piece of land. So we set up the tent, and it was the first family camping adventure. So it worked out well.
Awesome. It's funny you said that because the first comment on the stream here, I don't think many people are watching yet or whatever, but the first comment is from this dude that works at Middle Ages Brewing in Syracuse, and he said the new geezer is Groovy.
Ah, sweet. All right.
You got some fans in Syracuse. How has that been putting out an album during this? Like you were planning to put it out before all this happened, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, so we got hooked up with the record label Heavy Psych Sounds. I want to say that was back in January, if I remember correctly. Okay. And by February, we had known the release date and the general plan. And so it was really only about a month before things started to fall apart.
Yeah.
That we had. And so for that, I think we were very lucky in a few ways, because if we had not connected with that record label, if we had not set, the kind of release dates the way that we did, we might have had absolutely not had a record coming out. I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we got in just before things started to get crazy, and in addition, releasing the record in June as opposed to say March or April. Even though this is not over, people are, especially around here, are dealing with this much differently now than we were back in March or April. So I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of bands who were releasing albums back then, they kind of lost momentum because everybody was so wrapped up in this other thing. So I think we've been very lucky because it's come out at a better time. Unfortunately, we can't go out and promote it like we were planning. But in the grand scheme of things, I can't really complain about it. I mean, the most important thing is, we got the record out and people are responding to it very strongly in a very positive way. So we feel that once this is all over, we'll still be in a better position to go out there and take advantage of it. But it's been tough.
Yeah. Was there ever any conversation about pushing the release back until you could support it?
Not really. I mean, the label that we deal with, we pushed it back a few weeks initially, but they have a lot of bands on their label and they have a schedule to go. And they're based out of Rome, so God bless them. Like before New York was ground zero.
Absolutely.
Rome was ground zero, and those guys were in the middle of it like 3 weeks before we were, and they were still able to keep everything going. So we're very fortunate that we're with that kind of a record label too, because they were able to keep the ball rolling, which is all we really wanted.
That's awesome. It's a kind of an interesting idea because it's like so many people are at home and looking for media to consume. So in some ways, it's a great time to put out an album.
Absolutely.
But in other times, people are worried about income you can't do the live shows to promote it.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially with music, entertainment in general, as you know, man, like there's so many of us who are suffering and so many people whose livelihoods depend on that money.
Absolutely.
And we have no idea, like, we just entered phase 3 here in the Hudson Valley, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, when are you going to play a show again, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I have no idea.
Some people have been, I think like acoustic, more acoustic stuff. Like I think Lara's has played at Keegan's already. I think they're doing stuff. There's some stuff like that. But yeah, for like loud bands, I don't know when that's gonna. Yeah, that's gonna be a while.
It's a different ball game. So, but the whole world is
exactly
is
dealing with this
right
same
now,
thing.
So,
I mean, I think it's gonna be interesting to me. Because like I have friends in like Tennessee and whatnot, and these places are opening for shows now. I'm pretty sure, or like relatively soon, but it's at like smaller capacities. So I think some of these bands that are used to only having 10 people at a show, now it's going to be a little more prestigious. Like you can only let 25 in, so they'll have the full 25. So for some bands, it might be better.
Well, I thought about that too. I'm like, so if we're talking about like doing shows at 25% or 50% capacity, I mean, let's be honest, like my band's, I could play a bigger venue and fill it, 25%, sure, no problem.
Yeah, there you go. That's great.
the one thing I got to say about that though is the problem you're going to have, and smaller towns may not be as bad, but for places like New York City,
people are going to come from everywhere.
Well, no, it's not so much that, but
Okay.
even if they're operating at 50% capacity, the venues and the promoters are it may not be worth it for them to do that kind of shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't know how this is all going to work out. We'll just have to wait and see and do the best we can do in the meantime.
Yeah, that's what I do. Something like event staff work for like UPAC and the Bardavon, and they basically, for them to go at a smaller capacity is just not worth it. So they're like pretty much, I don't know if they've officially said they're done until 2021, but more or less there's not very much chance of them doing anything significant before then because of that, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So this album, when you've had it recorded for a while, like you linked up with the record company in January. You said you recorded it last year.
Yeah, it was recorded. We did the basics, the drums, bass, and most of the guitars in one weekend last August. And we did it right here in Kingston at Dark World Studio.
Nice.
And then we took our time with some of the post-production kind of stuff, and as usual, whenever you're getting into mixing and all this, people's schedules need to align and all that. And, so go and we knew we wanted to shop this record. We haven't shopped a record since the very first record we did, and so we were sitting on it for a while to make sure a few things lined up before we even put it out there. So
you've just been self-releasing the albums before this?
No, we've worked with different record labels in the stoner rock world. We've kind of bounced around. STB Records was the first one that we hooked up with, and at that time they were doing incredible things, especially with vinyl packages and stuff. And we've worked with Ripple Music and Cosmic Artifacts out of Germany. And one good thing about the scene that Geezer kind of rotates around in is there are a lot of these smaller record labels that bands can hook up with, and you're not going to be selling 1 million records, but you can sell a couple of hundred records around the world and do some cool shit.
Absolutely. Did you have plans to, like, were you had the label in Rome, were you planning to get over to Europe anytime before all this happened, obviously?
Yeah, we were booking a tour for the end of the year, which now is done.
Oh,
so,
man.
Yeah, that's a big disappointment.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But, 2021, springtime, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, at least you have something to look forward to with that.
Yeah.
Is this the first album with Steve Marcotte?
Yeah, this is the first one with Steve, and we did an EP with Steve, the Spiral Fires EP, which came out last year. But this is the first full length we've done with Steve, and Steve's been with us for about 3 years now, and we spent a good amount of time just kind of, we didn't really know Steve at all prior to that. We played with him a couple of times with his other bands, but I didn't really know him. So we spent a good time, like, kind of feeling each other out and seeing how we work together and developing songs along the way. And so he had a huge impact on this record. And I think just the great thing was that by the time we got to recording and preparing for this album, all three of us were really on the same page.
Nice.
And so that when you have, especially with a power trio like that, if you have all three guys on the same page working towards the same goal with the same ideas of what the music should be, then really that changes everything, and it's a rare thing.
Yeah, definitely. I like the way, like, listening to the new album, the way you guys use space. Like, all three of you have, are taking up a big chunk of space, but it's all, spread out in a enjoyable way,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I think we try, we try and service the song as much as possible. I'm gonna go off and do my guitar noodling thing, and
but the bass is like very present. Everything has its own presence. Like,
thank you. Yeah. And we try and do that. We want it to be a band, I don't want it to be just Pat Harrington and the Geezers.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I feel like you can feel everyone's personality in the music. You can definitely Richie with the bass, has a big personality and presence in the music, and with the drums as well. I feel like there's lots of, been listening to this while I'm doing deliveries for the last week or two, and there's lots of weird, like, panned, like, hi-hat or tambourine stuff that, like, is kind of makes it, this like a trippy experience almost, you know, just where the panning of certain, like, weird, like, small drum sounds are coming from, you know?
Yeah, and Steve, that was probably one of the biggest impacts that Steve made, because when we did all the basics, he had started to set up kind of a studio in his place. So I just basically gave him all the tracks and was like, okay, go do your percussion thing. And he took his time for sure. But, you know, like, all, you know, he did all that himself, all the tambourines.
Oh, so he just added, like, after the fact, you, like, did
after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah. But, you know, he's the kind of dude that, like, he already had a good amount of that shit in his head ahead of time.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
He would write his drum parts knowing, you know, okay, I'll keep an eighth note on the hi-hat here because I want to do 16th notes on a tambourine there. You know what I mean?
That's great. That's awesome.
And I'm a, you know, big AC/DC fan, and I tell the story a lot, but, like, if you listen to those early AC/DC albums, like, there's so many examples. Like Problem Child is a great example, where they do the first verse and they get through the chorus, and then when they kick into the second verse, suddenly there's this shaker in there really high in the mix that's doing like 16th notes, and suddenly your ass is bouncing off the walls. Like, oh my God, you know. And AC/DC was great for that. A lot of those old school 70s rock bands were great for that kind of shit.
Absolutely.
Whether it was a cowbell, a tambourine, or a shaker, I think, you know, to me,
I was going to ask about that too. On Dig, did you have to ask Steve for more cowbell, or he just jumped right on it?
No, he jumped right in with that shit. And that's the other thing. Like, you know, we were very self-aware about what we were doing with this album, and so there was no, like, nobody had any real kind of hang-ups about, oh, that's too predictable, or it's too this or too that. It was just like, just fucking go for it. So yeah, I mean, and that's a great example. Like in Dig, when that riff kicks in and he starts hitting the cowbell, it's like, oh wow, this, like, now we're on a different level here.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of times in that song in particular where it gets, you know, it goes in a direction that I don't think is obvious. At least, you know, I don't know.
Oh, right on. Very cool.
Yeah, I dig it. I think I was reading, like, on your Facebook thing, you have the promotion thing for this album, talking about this is the first album that you, like, planned out ahead of time, or maybe I'm not using the words right, but, like, you had a cohesive vision for it beforehand.
Yeah, you know, Geezer started out with me and Chris Turco, and initially we had, you know, our initial bass player, he lived in Ithaca, Freddie Volano. He was an old friend of mine. He lived in Ithaca, so, like, we didn't rehearse or anything. So even when we recorded, it was shit that, like, I would have some song ideas and we would just do it right there.
Yeah.
So for the first bunch of years, that's kind of how we operated. And then when Richie showed up for our self-titled album, we spent about a year planning everything out. But then Chris left the band and things were in flux again for a few years. So it's been a while since we've been able to do that again. You know, it's been like 4 years.
So you started this band in what, like 2013? Earlier?
I just got a thing on Facebook.
This is the one good thing about Facebook is the memories. You can tell how many years ago.
It was just this month, June of 2012, that we started.
Oh, right on.
We recorded the first record. So the band started probably the summer prior to that, like 2011.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, we just thought when we started, we just thought we were going to be playing around town and, you know, like, maybe venture out into New Paltz every now and again. But but things kind of, you know, we got lucky in a few ways, and the reception of the band has always been very strong. So I'm the kind of guy that, like, okay, well, if they like this, then maybe we can do this, and then maybe we could do that.
Fuck
and next thing you know, it's 8 years later, and we're all like,
it's amazing.
How the fuck did that happen?
I've seen,
but it's been great. I do gotta say, man, the band is a direct result. Like, it could have never happened. You know, I lived in New York City for a long time, and Chris Turco lived in New York City, and we met here in Kingston, and we were very much a product of Kingston, and it was perfect because right as the time as we were kind of growing, you know, the scene around here started to grow. You know, first there was a Rundown Music Lounge that turned into the Anchor. BSP really became something, and now you have like Tubby's, and unfortunately, a lot of those places are in flux right now. We don't know what's happening, but we're very proud of the fact that this is a Kingston band, and we're proud that like everything we've done around here, whether it's we've always tried to record locally, we've always tried to use local artists for our artwork. Everything we do, we try and have it as local as possible, and it's been a really rewarding experience because the success of the band, to whatever degree of success we have, we think a big part of that is due to what we have here in Kingston.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a Facebook post that you made saying that this is a band that you've always wanted to be in, and I found that like very moving. That was like nice to hear that.
Well, it's one of those things where like you don't know what you're looking for until you find it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
All of a sudden you're like, but you know how it is, man. Like the music industry is so fucking weird.
You can't chase what you think people want because that's a fucking that never ever because it's always the original thing that people don't know they want that's the most significant or powerful or whatever. But
whereas I am in love with heavy music and all that stuff, I've always I was a Deadhead for many years, and that improvisational side of me, I've always thought. The thing that always bothered me about metal or in the psychedelic music was I always wanted my psychedelic music to be heavier, and I always wanted my metal to be more psychedelic. So
there you go.
That's kind of where the idea of Geezer kind of started to come out of. First it was, let's just be a heavy blues band, and then it was like, well, we can all improvise, so let's just do that, and then it just kind of went from there.
Right on. That's awesome. Like, what are some of your what drove you to play guitar? Is it you started with the Grateful Dead stuff?
No. I started the first song I learned to play on guitar. The first like rock and roll song was "Good Times, Bad Times" by Led Zeppelin.
Okay, fuck yeah.
I was just one of those guys. I remember being 5. When I was 5, I was a Kiss fan.
Yeah.
And then I had an older brother who introduced me to Led Zeppelin, and I remember walking to the department store in my town on Long Island to buy Led Zeppelin 2 on cassette,
Nice.
Music was always a thing for me. And then I had a keyboard at one point when I was younger, but it didn't click. And then, honestly, I've told the story before. I saw Purple Rain came out.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah,
I saw the video for Let's Go Crazy. And the solo at the end of that, when they show Prince on top of the monitors and he's just ripping it, and I'm just like, that's it. That's what I want to do,
Fuck yeah.
But so then once I started playing guitar when I was 10 and started with lessons, and my guitar teacher was this Randy Rhoads looking cat with a BC Ridge bitch.
Long Island, right? Yeah, Long Island about that time, yeah.
This is probably like 1982 or
Fuck
83.
Yeah.
And so instantly, and then it just became guitar-driven rock. So Led Zeppelin, to Black Sabbath, to AC/DC, to then Iron Maiden, Metallica, Slayer, Celtic Frost, on and on and on. But then metal became kind of, especially in Long Island, there was all these rules if you were a metalhead.
Okay.
And
like what kind of rules are we talking? What
well, there was
era?
always like, oh, that's not metal enough. This isn't. It was a time where like goofy shit was happening. And like Judas Priest came out with Turbo Lover, and you're like, well, that kind of sucks.
Oh, okay, that's pretty early on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But
I was thinking even later when you're talking like Living Color, or there's a couple other bands, Fate's Warning. There was some other where I feel like the later 80s where metal started getting pushed in some weird, more progressive boundaries, and it was lashed back to that.
Yeah, but like bands like Guns N' Roses kind of opened the door to be like, oh man, you could be a heavy band but still be like a dangerous rock and roll band.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like, I remember the first time I saw the video for Mountain Song from Jane's Addiction.
Holy
shit,
definitely.
what the fuck was that? and that started to change my perception of what music could be, because I was feeling boxed in. And then, I started to take acid, and then I heard a Grateful Dead song and was off to the races with that.
So that's a funny way to do it. You kind of you did the rock and roll and into the metal stuff, and then into the Grateful Dead afterwards.
Yeah, I can't explain it, man. Yeah. Other than I really like doing acid.
Me too, man. Me too.
But I do gotta say, even though I cringe at some of that stuff these days, I learned how to improvise by playing along to Grateful Dead records.
Fuck yeah.
Same thing with the Allman Brothers. If anybody, the Grateful Dead opened the door to some things, but like the Allman Brothers, for example, was where I was like, oh my God, like, because once you hear Duane Allman and Dickie Betts playing guitar together, then it's a whole new world. And that, once again, that was a band that kind of changed everything for me, because then it wasn't even about like trying to be Eddie Van Halen, which I knew I could never be. It wasn't about fretboard gymnastics. Like,
gotcha. It's more about feel and.
Yeah, it's about feel, and more important than anything to me is phrasing. And that, that was driven home to me by especially bands like the Allman Brothers, because you listen to Duane Allman play guitar and it's like somebody singing. I mean, you can't, so, and again, so having that kind of background, when it came time to try and figure out what I wanted to do, it was like I had all those different pieces, and it just took a really long time for me to figure out how to put them together.
So, like, when were you playing in bands back in those days, or you?
So I did college where I didn't really play much. And
you in Long Island, or?
I went to college in Connecticut.
Okay.
And then went back to Long Island after that. And odd story, I broke my wrist actually a month before I graduated college, and then I had it in a cast for like 3 months, so that summer sucked. Once I got the cast off, I went right away and started just shedding on the guitar again, because not that I was already, like, in high school, we would play clubs and stuff, and I had already recorded original music. So
what kind of bands in high school? Like, it's funny. I'm just picturing
thrash band.
Okay, that's what I'm picturing. Like drumming for you in a thrash band, and all of a sudden you start doing acid and fucking rocking some Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead stuff. That's got to be a little bit culture clash.
Hated me. They thought I was a sellout, man. That Pat, he's a fucking sellout.
That's fucking
man.
great.
He's going to Dead shows. So yeah, then I started after college, and I broke my wrist. So then I started playing again, because I didn't want to lose whatever it was that I had, and that's when it really clicked for me. And like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So right away, I started to try and get into bands in the city, and started to stumble my way through that. And then I found a couple of bands in the city that clicked, and got to do some really cool shit.
And this is kind of like early '90s, mid '90s.
By the time I got into the city, we were late 90s.
Okay.
I was playing in the city. Basically, I started playing in the city and just being around that whole thing, starting around 95.
Were you living down there, or were you living up here? Or
I lived in Long Island initially, and was commuting. I worked in the city. I worked at Manny's Music on 48th Street for a little while.
Nice.
And then, so I was commuting back and forth, and then I moved into the city in 98. And then that's when I basically full-time, I worked at Sam Ash for a couple of years, and, did that whole thing. But then it was my band Slunt in 2002 that took off around 2004, actually, where we got to do a lot of great things. We opened up for Marilyn Manson and Motorhead. Not opened up, we toured with Marilyn Manson and Motorhead.
Wow.
And Paul Stanley and COC.
Amazing.
And so we got to do a lot of amazing stuff, and that was my first kind of like entry into the music business, as it were.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it seems from like who you've like toured with and who you played with, that was especially in that era, that was a pretty cool. It
was unbelievable, man. Because we were just playing. Back then, New York City, there was still CBGBs, there was still the Continental. We still had
Coney Island
circuit.
High, and like I don't know. Yeah.
But the thing about being a city band that's weird is like you don't go anywhere.
Okay.
You play like once or twice a month, and back then anyway, there were enough clubs where you just, okay, this month we're playing Continental, next month we're playing CBs, the month after that we're playing Don Hills.
Gotcha.
And the whole idea is to create a buzz to get some industry guy or whatever to come down.
There wasn't a big DIY, we're going to book a tour.
I mean, it was, but it wasn't. But you also got to remember the time that I was doing that was around like 2002 was when all that started. It was after September 11th, and everybody that we were, all of us who were there and in the middle of that shit, we thought we were going to die anyway. So we just were like, fuck it. And there are a lot of bands that like started to kind of congregate around each other. Yeah. And a scene developed because everyone was just like, fuck it, I'm going to go out, partying. And so it was an interesting time to be there. But because of the nature of it, not many bands, progressed past that. I was lucky enough to be in a band that did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and then once you go through that for a couple of years, we toured for a couple of years. We did the States, we did Europe a bunch of times. Then, after that, you come out the other end of that, and then everything's kind of different, I guess.
Yeah. Like you can't go back to 25% capacity bar shows, or.
Well, no. I mean, I guess at one point I was foolish enough to think that I wouldn't do that, but no, it was more just like, I think it's more like, you see, okay, for example, the first major tour we did was Marilyn Manson.
Okay.
This was 2004, so this is not Antichrist Superstar Marilyn Manson. This is greatest hits Marilyn Manson.
Yeah,
okay. There's still anywhere from 2,500 to 5,000 seat venues.
Yeah, that's huge.
Which was huge for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and so and it was just us and them. So we got along. They had an excellent crew. It was professional, and that was really the eye opener.
Are you guys chasing a tour bus in like a van at that point, or?
No, we were just 15-passenger van with a trailer.
Yeah, which is some of those drives for the big guys. They sleep overnight and just wake up where they are, right?
Yeah, you know the drill with that stuff, man. There was none of that for us.
Yeah,
but we got to see, and I got to see for the very first time the real what is real about the music industry and what is bullshit.
Yeah.
And then once you see it, like, you see what's important. And for a great example, especially coming out of New York City, everybody's the biggest hot shit in the world. Everybody who goes to New York City to be a rock star is like type A+ personality.
Yeah.
And thinks they're God's greatest gift. And I've met fabulous people, amazing artists, amazing musicians, but you still there's this sense of weird competition. Everybody thinks they have to be the most professional thing in the world.
Yeah.
But yet they don't do anything other than playing, around the city. When you go out and then you see how real bands operate and meet real rock stars, none of that is there.
Yeah, exactly.
Paul Stanley, we toured with him. He's one of the nicest fucking guys I've ever met. From day one, we walk in, the first show we were doing with them, he's on stage doing sound check, stops sound check, calls us over, shakes our hands.
Wow.
And, and the nicest guy in the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
so that's crazy, yeah.
More often than not, that's the case. The people who are really the professionals, the people who really know what's up, are not worried about what other people think or anything. They're just doing their thing, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So, and what brought an end to Slunt? Like, everyone just moved on?
Well, we were a 2-girl band.
Yeah, when I was looking for pictures to put up for this, I saw like a picture of you guys that was like, you guys looked like a fucking rock and roll band, man. That was a good looking. I wish I would have taken it so I could put it up on the screen right now, but that was a good fucking picture, man.
Yeah, our singer, honestly, got pregnant, and that was that. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's not as bad as her starting a rockabilly band, but it's still rough.
Well, the unfortunate thing was we had just finished our second album and just released our second album, which was miles above where our first album was. And we were kind of poised to start really
getting
making
a little
bit.
Oh, fuck.
And it just kind of got stopped dead in its tracks. And it is what it is, man. I can't.
Yeah, but I mean, that gave you the perspective and the whatever insight to decide that you wanted to do this, and now you get to do this.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like you said, it gave me the insight and the perspective to kind of eventually figure out how to kind of venture out on my own,
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's hard to figure out. Like, for me right now, I'm not even sure, especially now that shows aren't a thing. Because I had, like, me and Mal had the acoustic Red Necromancer stuff, and, you make a little bit of money, and we were getting booked, so it was easy. But now that there's not shows, it's like I can do anything I want. I can do, full electric music myself, I'm just not even sure what I want to do, It's like
it's a crazy time. Yeah, I agree.
I think it's cool in a way because everyone's not, you're not. I think you're going to come out with a lot of interesting music with people just doing stuff for the sake of doing it.
I think so too, and I think also it'll be a little bit of a cleanse in that, if you take money out of the equation, usually the only people that are left are the
people
ones
that want
to
do it. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. What about the rate you do Electric Beer to Doom, right?
Yeah, I have the last year or so. I haven't really done it. I kind of fell off the radar for me a bit. But yeah, I was doing that for about 5 years.
And that was like you just started doing that is like a podcast kind of thing. It's like how does that work?
It was a podcast for the most part. It was a podcast. I did one every 2 weeks. Initially, I was connected to various internet radio stations.
Gotcha.
As well as just putting it up on the Mixcloud page. But eventually, I just kind of ventured. I just did it on my own. As time wore on, it got tougher to do. I had, it started actually just because my first son was born and I was in a Mr. Mom kind of situation. My wife was traveling a lot for work at the time. So I was like, well, I'm going to be home. I need something to do. So I just that's kind of where I ended up.
Yeah.
But as I was going into the 5th year and everything, now I had 2 kids and a job and my living situation was different, so it just became harder and harder to keep up. So eventually I did do a new one about a month or so ago for the first time in like a year, and I'll probably bring it back every now and again. But it was a super rewarding experience. I felt I got so much out of that experience, especially through promoting other bands and hyping up other people's stuff. It came back to me tenfold. You know what I mean? So
I've been watching these like Murder in the Front Row, these documentary, like basically like 80s thrash metal documentaries.
Oh yeah.
And you see a lot of these bands like Anthrax and Metallica, Exodus, all these bands that are huge now are just like these fucking nerdy teenagers that are tape trading, just mailing each other fucking tapes, I remember booking shows in the 90s where we're just mailing out our little, like, kind of 90s post-punk tapes to everybody,
Yeah.
And that's the Beer to Doom kind of reminds me of that, the digital version of that, where, you're letting all these people, you're sharing this community with a bunch of people,
And that's exactly right, man. And it's essentially like making a mixtape for your friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now even with the quarantine, you just haven't, because it almost seems like that's like would be good for the whole quarantine situation.
It was, and that's why I did do another one. But I just, it's been a weird 3 months, man.
Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. Well, that's what I like. I started this to like, I'm like, if I'm gonna just descend into madness, I might as well chronicle it. Let people see the downward spiral. But then I got busier for some reason during this than I was before. I don't know. Things got normal quicker than I expected them to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if this is normal.
Yeah, exactly. I guess maybe not normal. I just adjusted to it quicker than I expected to. That's, I guess, adaptable at 45. I don't know. Right on. So have you guys been practicing at all during this?
We have. We started practicing about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We've done we hooked up at this rehearsal studio up in Saugerties because we were rehearsing at a Steve's apartment, but that situation is not really doable anymore.
Gotcha.
So then we hooked up at the studio up in Saugerties, which was a great experience. But he has to close his doors because he got wiped out.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID thing. So right now we're looking for a new home. So if anybody's got a rehearsal space that you know of,
there you go.
Geezer's looking for one.
An excellent band, to have in your rehearsal space.
Yeah.
What is your thing now? Are you concentrating on new stuff or just brushing up on stuff from the album?
Well, we want to do. I don't think it's going to be a live stream, but we're going to film.
Something, yeah.
We're going to do a thing, and we want to film us playing the album in its entirety.
Oh, that'd be fucking awesome, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. So we're just trying to pull everything together. That's something we definitely want to have done by the end of the summer.
Okay.
And then figure out some way to promote that and make stuff happen through that.
Do you have like a venue in mind for that, or like is there a vision?
No, that's kind of what it's kind of what we're starting to figure out right now.
I mean, it might be an interesting time because you have a lot of like places that you might not normally be able to get. You might be able to like rent for a little bit cheaper, or you might be able to do something that you couldn't normally do because
and that's kind
places
of the
are closed.
Idea.
Yeah,
that's basically the idea. Is we want to have something. Initially we were just going to do it, have us in a jam room playing stuff, but then it was like, listen, if we take the time, and we have the resources, let's see what we can figure out, and maybe make some art out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition, I've because we have been sitting at home quarantined, like I've had, especially the first month or two of quarantine, like I had a guitar in my hand virtually all the time.
So you got a lot of shit written, yeah.
Yeah. So in the times that we have been jamming, we've been working on new material and working on new ideas. So we'll see.
I mean, you guys from even the beginning of this, I was just looking at your discography when I was looking it up. Like, you don't go very long without putting something out.
No, and it's weird because, like I told you, like we finished this album back in the end of last year, and it took 6 months to come out. Like during those downtimes, I get so bored. Like, I'm just like, by the time the album comes out, I'm like, whatever. But you should hear this new song we got.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, I've been, we've talked about it. I've been doing this, kind of playing out since like '95. Over the course of those 25 years, I don't think I've spent more than a few months not being in some band. I like band shit. I like being in a band. Yeah. I like being in stinky old bars at 1 a.m. on a weeknight. I love the lifestyle. I love touring. I love everything about it. So I just like, why stop?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the interesting thing with like putting out your own stuff, or like having to promote your own stuff, is that by the time all the production and all that's done, like if you could do the promotion before it was done, when you were really excited about it, it'd be easy to do. Send out people send everyone emails about how good it's going to be. But then by the time you're done, you've listened to it 40 times in mixing and mastering, and it's hard to, like, for me at least, to get like super pumped up about it at that point. It's almost like I'm ready for the next thing,
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. This has been fucking great talking to you.
Yeah, right on, man.
I dug
Thank you so much for having me, dude.
Yeah. If anyone comments with the practice space, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing the live stream.
Right on, man, and hopefully I'll see you out one of these days.
Yeah, absolutly.
Maybe one day we can have a drink in a bar again.
Yeah, together. I mean, if you ever want to get a drink in an alley somewhere, I'm down for 40s too. So.
All right, brother, man.
All right, Pat. Love you, man.
All right, talk to you soon, bro.
Later, bud.
Later.
All right, that was Pat Harrington from Geezer. Their new. I guess I should have asked where the album is available for sale. I think they're doing vinyl and digital downloads. They're pretty easy to find. You would think that the name Geezer would be taken, but I think they're easy to find on Google and stuff. So we're gonna listen to our next guest is John Bryan from Dead Empires and Wall of Ego. I have to pee because I've had 7 beers in me. So we're gonna play a Wall of Ego song, and then we're gonna get him on the phone.